Hey, Steven.
Hey, James. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Oh, my God. Now that we have this new house, it's become like the social center of the neighborhood. And so there's constantly a gang of children running around in my yard, and none of which I can recognize. I don't know whose kids they are, but just constant. It's constant. The screaming never ends. So excuse me if you hear any of that. They're all running around right now. So I was thinking that what I need is I need an app that I can use to manage all these children, all from different families and different ages, some way to organize all these kids, at least on my device, so I can like identify them and know when it's time for each one to go home, and or when one of them is missing. If one of them goes missing, I think I need to know something like that. So I think that's pretty relevant to today's discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today we'll be talking about enterprise mobility management. I have with me today Propelics strategist James Hoshor. We are going to talk about the difference between a mobile device management and a mobile app management. We'll be talking about some challenges that enterprises face in mobility today and in the future. We'll be talking about some best practices around delivering and supporting your enterprise mobile apps. And then lastly, James will provide a checklist that will help you ensure that your mobile app foundation is secure. We got a full agenda here. So let's just start. Let's kick it right off. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Device Squad, the podcast for the mobile enterprise from Propelics. Device Squad, fighting crimes against enterprise mobility worldwide. Bad UI, frustrating user experiences, poorly conceived mobile strategies, we defeat them all. This podcast series will cover all aspects of enterprise mobility, including strategy, development, design, testing, and more. My name is Steve Brykman. I'm a mobile strategist and UX architect with Propelics. First, a brief history of the company. Founded in 2011, Propelics is a mobile strategy consultancy helping enterprises worldwide devise true mobile strategies and develop world-class mobile applications across all industry verticals. Propelics clients include large companies like Amway, Bright Horizons, Bank of Montreal, Dubai Airports, Family Dollar, DLL, Cintas, Merck, and many more. Propelics' menu of services includes 8 different mobile kickstarts, covering everything from mobile strategy and road mapping to MCOE to UI UX design to mobile testing strategy, along with soup to nuts app design development and support. Additionally, Propelics offers 3 homegrown enterprise mobile products. So, James, let's just kick it right off. So, what do you see as some of the key challenges that enterprises face in terms of mobility today?
You know, we're engaged with different clients all across the U.S. here in different sizes. We engage with clients with a couple hundred employees onto my current client engagement, which has over 3,500 employees. And, you know, with mobile being such a big demand now, not only in consumer, but across in businesses and enterprise being highly demanded by employees because employees want to leverage mobility to improve their daily task and to make them more productive and stuff out there. We're really seeing that organizations are having to take a step back or pause and really kind of reevaluate how their access is provided to corporate applications and data. You know, the common workforce is no longer just sitting at their desktop 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day. They're mobile, right? So they're using their mobile devices as they're commuting to work. You know, they're using it when they're sitting in meetings or if they're traveling to a client site or to an industry show. And so it's important that they have access to, you know, the applications and the information they need to be successful in doing their daily task and to responding to client needs. So certainly what this has done is it's really caused companies to really pause and think about, okay, how am I going to grant access to my mobile workforce now in a way that's going to enable them to be productive, but also make sure that the data is secure? Because obviously, as we're now expanding our enterprises out to a multitude of devices, whether it's a smartwatch or a tablet or smartphone. There's all kinds of potential security threats and malware and stuff we see every day in the news. I mean, Yahoo being hacked recently with their email and so forth. So, one of the things we're seeing from a challenge standpoint is IT and, making sure that they have the proper controls in place to secure this data. So they need to determine how applications are going to be delivered. They also have to look at how they're going to manage those apps and devices, which we're going to talk a little bit about here later in the podcast. What type of security measures are required and how will they be maintained? And then, you have to have the right resources in place to ensure that you're going to be compliant with organizational policies and procedures and industry regulations. So there's all kinds of different things that companies now have to take into consideration and really be cognizant about when they're opening up enterprise mobility and really trying to leverage the value it provides to their workforce.
It's like the proliferation of mobile and the normalization of mobile technology has sort of led to this sort of casual interaction with data that's, that has not become any less sensitive to organizations. But we now have the freedom to access that data anywhere. And so these are all new issues.
Right. The current engagement that we're on, we're dealing with a large organization that has 1,500 plus users out in the field. And it's critical that they have access to real-time data to make better decisions on the spot. There's things that are required from a safety perspective to make sure their employees are safe as they're performing their task. This particular client happens to be in the oil and gas industry, so they have folks that are spread in very rural areas. So sometimes the connectivity isn't the best, but they need to have the right information at their fingertips to make, safe and proper decisions out there. So there's a lot of considerations, which obviously is creating a lot of challenges. So it's really important that companies really take the time and focus on what are these use cases, which will help really determine, how they're going to address these challenges in the right way to make the best value.
And this may be putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but for those organizations that are just getting started in mobility, what would you say is the best way to determine their most appropriate app delivery method? Just to elaborate for those who aren't clear on what that is, what is the best way to distribute your apps internally and sometimes externally, but specifically to employees and partners, etc.? And what are some of the risks of choosing the wrong method?
The short answer is there really is no one correct answer. We deal with organizations of different sizes, different types of workforce out there. And so it truly depends on that target user and those mobile use cases. And you have to know that first before you can really determine how you're going to deliver these types of mobile solutions out there. And as you know, mobile solutions aren't just native apps either. There's mobile web, there's the hybrid approach where you're using mobile web with native wrappers and such. And so, that really opens up to different possibilities in how you can and should distribute your mobile apps and services to your employee base or to external users, whether that's customers or partners and so forth out there. But, doing so also really presents some risk, as you mentioned, right? So a lot of companies at first were exploring tools like Dropbox, which is a great tool out there. I mean, we use Dropbox today and other tools like it, but it also poses challenges when you're using a tool like Dropbox because the employees are using it to, store and share data out there, and the risk this causes to their organization is that really IT doesn't have a good way of managing or monitoring the control of that the documents that are being shared by the use of a tool like Dropbox, right? So again, it's really having to look at who are my target users that I'm allowing to leverage mobile, and what are the use cases? Are they needing to share documentation out there? Are they needing to access critical company information or pricing information or product information that you don't want openly exposed out to the marketplace? And so understanding those types of use cases and the target users really then starts to help you define, how you're going to distribute your mobile apps. And it also helps identify the types of apps that you're going to be developing and delivering to your target user base, whether you go native or hybrid or mobile web. Native apps truly aren't going away. In a lot of cases, native apps are the best solution out there because they provide a great way of having offline capabilities where that's needed in remote work areas like the project I was talking about that I'm working on today. Access to your device capabilities, whether it's push notifications, GPS, camera capabilities, and so forth out there. But the other side of it, companies are trying to leverage what they've already made investments in. And so when companies have, over the last decade, made a significant investment in web enabling a lot of their applications, going from those legacy mainframe-based systems to more client-server web-based technologies, they're trying to leverage those investments today. And because mobile has really continued to evolve in its maturity around mobile web technologies in HTML5 and so forth, and now you're seeing a lot of these mobile app development platforms that are offering this hybrid development, write the code once and deploy to multiple platforms and OSs out there. That's becoming more attractive out there for organizations to take advantage of. And so, again, there's a lot of considerations around enterprise mobility management and how you're delivering these types of mobile solutions, whether it's native or mobile web or hybrid out there. And so looking at these types of approaches here, really the key ones that we're seeing out there being used today as far as deploying apps in the enterprise is a lot of organizations are now implementing what we call enterprise app stores. They're leveraging commonly in industry supported tools like MobileIron or Perion that enable companies to either purchase or custom build mobile apps, but deploy them securely through an enterprise store that their employees can leverage or partners can leverage to download and manage their applications and access to company data. We're also seeing a lot of companies that are, because cloud technology is also continuing to evolve and become more secure and more diverse in the different types of benefits it provides. We're seeing a lot of companies delivering mobile apps through private cloud solutions out there. We're still seeing companies that are also doing virtual mobile desktops, where that makes sense, again, based on use cases and target users and such. So those are really kind of the common deployment methods we're seeing today. I don't foresee that changing too much as we look forward to the next 12 to 24 months. But again, there's a lot of different considerations and factors that go into it, and companies really need to understand those factors before they're making the choice of how they're going to deliver mobile apps and solutions to their target user base.
And would you say that enterprise app store is probably the best way, generally speaking, for enterprises to deliver apps internally, in that they also provide, or they can provide, information about what version of the app everybody's using. They can provide information on who has yet to update their app. They can provide instructional information to go along with the apps. They can also let users register feedback on, app crashes or app features that are buggy and those sorts of things.
No, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I think, as I mentioned, a couple of tools like Perion or MobileIron, not only are those enterprise app store, there are also companies that provide mobile device management, mobile application management solutions. And that, to your point, gives the enterprise a great way of monitoring the devices that employees are using out there, whether it's a corporate-owned device or a personal device that they've enrolled into their solution. It's also a great way to manage version control and making sure that they're on the latest software to help prevent malicious attacks and so forth.
Speaking of which, what are you seeing as some of the most common mistakes that companies are making today when it comes to enterprise mobility management? And what are some of the best ways to avoid those kinds of mistakes?
The biggest thing that we're seeing is the companies that are just going out and licensing an MDM, a mobile device management or mobile application management solution, implementing the basic controls and features of it, and then just kind of checking the box. They think, okay, I've installed MobileIron. I did the standard feature set that I needed to do to make sure I can manage, my devices I have enrolled into it, but that's it. It's much more than that today. We're seeing out there's a lot of bad people in the world that are really trying to get access to company data and steal valuable information, whether it's Social Security information or company financials and stuff to make financial gains off that, right? So it's more than just buying the software, installing the basic features and checking the box. What we're seeing out there is The companies that are doing that are definitely more prone to having those security threats and attacks and vulnerabilities out there. The ones that are taking the time to really identify, first of all, what is the best device management or application management solution for their mobility needs, and then making sure that that aligns with their corporate policies around acceptable use and internet usage and access control and everything else, are the ones that are going to be well off, in the long run, as far as protecting themselves, protecting their employees and their data out there. That's probably the biggest ones out there.
Yeah, so let's just back up for a second, James. Could you just, for people that aren't familiar, could you just define the differences between mobile device management, or MDM, and mobile app management, MAM?
Yeah, that's a common question we get all the time out here in the field working with clients, because they truly are two different things. So for mobile device management, really what this entails, it's a full device approach for securing and controlling mobile devices. This is where IT can leverage an MDM solution for really enforcing passcodes, using it for remote wiping of devices for security measures. So if you have employees that lose their mobile device and they use it for accessing company information or doing contracts or whatever, and they happen to lose that, MDM, a mobile device management solution, can give IT the ability to wipe that device clean. So that way, if it does fall in the wrong hands, there's no information that can be accessed or obtained on that could put the company in harm. And so what this does, it really enables this real-time monitoring and reporting of mobile devices. So unfortunately, that kind of leads into some arguments around privacy, and sometimes employees feel that it's more like Big Brother-like, and it's intrusive that, hey, my company's got this software installed on my device.
Yeah.
They can monitor everything I'm doing. I don't want that, and so forth. But I think if companies really approach it in the right manner and explain to the employees, educating them, hey, this is not to monitor you specifically surfing the internet and everything else. It's to protect the corporation and the data that you're accessing on the device from getting in the wrong hands or being breached in some manner, right? That's the MDM side of things. The mobile application management, MAM, really is used to manage and secure the apps that are on those devices. And so MDM is really about the device itself, the physical device, whether it's a tablet, a smartphone, a wearable device, et cetera, out there, and how access is being granted through that device, and the security, the passcode protections and encryption. The MAM, or the mobile application management, is really focused on the applications themselves. So as we talked about a few minutes ago, as companies start looking at enterprise app stores and they're starting to offer multiple apps for employees to use, whether it's for timekeeping or performing daily business processes and functions, or planning trips out there using a travel agent booking tool, it's really important that they leverage a tool like a mobile application management, because that really gives them the ability, as we were talking about, to making sure that they have the most recent version of that app. You see, as a personal user, every day we're constantly getting notifications to update our apps that we use, because they've enhanced security in that app, or they've added different features that can improve our experience out there. So MAM tools are a great way to provide that type of capability out there. And the good thing about mobile application management tools is that they don't affect the other apps. So the companies use that to manage the company issued mobile apps. That doesn't affect my personal app. So I might have Uber or ESPN sports app or something like that on my device, and the MAM tool or solutions out there don't affect that. So that does give a little more ease of mind to the employees or the target users that, hey, I can still use my own personal mobile apps on my phone in addition to my company ones, and I won't be affected. A lot of it's around the education aspect. I mean, the last couple projects, including the current one I'm on, we did some field rides, day in the life visits, the workforce at well sites, and they don't understand what this technology is. All they feel is, hey, they're installing something on my device so they can monitor how I'm using my device. And so, again, with that short understanding of what it really is truly there to do, that's where you get the fence put up by employees or folks that are being told, hey, you need to sign this agreement, you need to allow us to put this software on there. So I think it goes a long ways for organizations, as I mentioned before, to have the right policies in place and take the time to really educate and update their workforce that are using mobile devices on why these policies are in place, why these types of tools, whether it's MDM or MAM tools, are being utilized by the organization. It's not to spy on them by any means. It's to protect the corporation, the data, and the employees from malicious attacks and threats out there.
So why don't you educate our listeners a little more? Just give us some of the pros and cons for each MDM or MAM solution, if you would.
The first thing to note here is there's a lot of solutions in the marketplace. And so not all these MDM or MA solutions are the same. So again, it's not something you should take lightly. You shouldn't just rush out and, look at the Gartner quadrant and say, looks like MobileIron's the top MDM solution in the marketplace today. I'm just going to go license that and install it. I think, companies truly need to understand, their features that are provided by these types of solutions out there, how it aligns with the use cases you have identified, your security measures that you have in place today, identify the gaps. As we talked about, a lot of companies do the very basics when it comes to policy and governance around mobility access and internet usage and stuff. So we're seeing a lot of companies that have some significant gaps around governance of mobility and access to data. And so it's really important that when you're looking at these type of solutions, you understand their full capabilities, the benefits that they provide, and how does that align with your mobile use cases, your roadmaps that you've defined, your security and compliance and infrastructure you have in place, because it really will make a difference. You can go buy the Cadillac of mobile solutions out there that you might not need. You might, unfortunately, go the other route and buy the cheapest one out there that doesn't have all the features that you do need from a security standpoint. So you need to take that into consideration, first of all. Some companies may have more stringent security requirements that an MDM solution can support or provide. Again, some organizations may not want data to leave their control, but MDM is not the 100% end-all solution for preventing any type of data leakage, via cloud services or other means. We're seeing some organizations that leverage VPN implementations. When you're looking at a VPN solution out there, those are good solutions, but leveraging a VPN that might not work with your MDM solution isn't a good combination there, because you're not always able to protect your company data well enough in some of those VPN implementations. So again, it's really understanding your use cases, the security and compliance regulations that you need to have in place to govern that out there. But the positive side of things, if you do take the time and you do find the right solution, and they're all good solutions in their own marketplace and what they provide as far as their feature sets, you can truly make life a lot easier for your IT organization or your governance team that's been put in charge of managing enterprise mobility for your company. It does save a lot of time from a reporting and monitoring perspective. If you get into unfortunate situations where some acts were performed illegally on a mobile device, it'll help you in your e-discovery processes. There are a lot of positives that these types of solutions can provide out there from a enterprise mobility management perspective.
Lastly, let's just get into that that checklist of things that organizations need to consider when they're choosing an MDM or an MAM solution.
This is a pretty lengthy list, so I won't go through all of it in detail here, but I'll hit the high points. And then certainly this is information that if companies or individuals are more interested in talking about, they can certainly contact the Propelics team and we can walk through it in more detail with them. But the first thing is I would definitely recommend at the top of the list is a well thought out device management strategy. So ideally, IT should be the ones that are aware of every smartphone and tablet used in the organization, from the activation of them to the retirement of them. But accomplishing this requires a cohesive plan for mobile device management. And again, this is an area where we're seeing a lot of companies are falling short. So definitely top of the list as you're starting to look at your enterprise mobile strategies. A component of that should be looking at establishing a device management strategy. So as the business use of smartphones and tablets continues to grow, inadequate IT oversight and controls is having negative effects. And so we're seeing that up to 1/3 of companies acknowledge that smartphone use is being hindered and slowed because IT admins can't manage the devices to the extent that they would like. And so that kind of falls back to what we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes about minimal security measures or device management capabilities being put in place. And because of that, legal and compliance departments are more reluctant to open up data access for employees or even vendors to do business. So to prevent that and to really improve that, definitely step one is to put a device management strategy in place and make sure you have all the right controls and policies out there. So the second one we'll talk about is mobile asset inventory. So it's really important that as you, again, are starting to enable mobility across your enterprise and start looking at supporting either one or multiple different types of devices and form factors out there, that you have a good understanding of those types of devices that you're going to be managing and supporting out there. So a quick list here is device inventory. So looking at, what physical details do you need to track? So beyond the basics of device ID and hardware model and firmware version, and MDM, as we talked about, can really help you record and report related assets like your wireless adapters and removable memory and things of that nature from your devices. Inventory classification, how do you want to group those mobile devices? So for example, an MDM might auto-classify your devices by mobile OS and version or state, unknown, authorized, provisioned, or decommissioned as examples there. Inventory maintenance. How do you want to update your inventory to reflect adds, changes, and deletes? Again, here an MDM might be able to use periodically poll devices, check for changes at network connections, and carry out admin-initiated audits. Physical tracking, do you need to know just who carries each handheld device and where they're located? Those are things that are important as you're purchasing these devices and you're deploying them out there to your employees out in the field. It's good to know where those devices are. We talked about in one example, if somebody lost their mobile device, there are capabilities now through mobile technology that you can quickly track those devices using GPS and then be able to wipe them using your MDM or MAM features to protect your data from being leaked out there. Database integration. Do you already have an inventory systems that manage other assets like your desktops and phones? So if so, you may want to integrate, managed mobile device records into a common database that you can use for inventory exports and reporting of that. So that mobile asset inventory is definitely another area that is strongly considered by all companies as they're starting to look at mobility. Then we look at, provisioning of mobile devices. Managing a device through its life cycle really begins with activation and provisioning. So here we're talking about how will each new device become an authorized, capable member of your handheld fleet out there. There's a lot of considerations when you go to provision devices. So from what type of platforms you're going to support, how you're going to register those devices, the agent activation. So how will your MDM software be installed on that? Will you do it through the electronic enrollment process, which a lot of these leading solutions are providing today? Or will you have a manual agreement that your employees will sign, and then your IT organization or maybe your technical services support team will do the enrollment of the software for your employees? And the same thing goes with device configuration. How are you looking at overriding factory or carrier defaults? How are you going to configure those, to meet your needs that you're wanting to implement as far as device control and management? And then, you look at mobile software distribution. Many MDMs go beyond device inventory and configuration, providing tools that deliver and update mobile applications. So this may not be job one, but it should be a close second that you consider is how you're going to deliver software or your applications out there. This really gets into more granular about your software packages, how are you going to bundle related applications for the purposes of configuration and delivery? So as we mentioned, these mobile application management, the enterprise app stores and such, these are great ways that you can securely bundle up mobile apps that you want to deploy to your workforce and manage those in a sense that it's not intrusive on the other personal apps that they have on their phone, but also gives you the ability to update and distribute as needed out there from an app distribution standpoint. And then you look at your mobile optimization. Your strategy should accommodate looking at a mobile optimization. Some of the MDMs out there offer compression and incremental updates and bandwidth management. So again, by putting a strategy in place, understanding your use cases, their target users, if they're using this in low connectivity areas, are they high users during the day? They're constantly going to be on their mobile devices in cellular areas, maybe not having access to Wi-Fi. It's really important to understand when you're distributing your software and the use of that software, the optimization of it as well. Another thing to look at is change control. How often will your mobile applications need to be patched or updated? So this ties into your release management out there and making sure you have a good release management plan. So as you're getting continuous feedback from your users, that you have change control in place. So as you're doing software updates or release management of that you have a good plan in place to do that effectively out there. And then certainly the next one is a big topic, mobile security management. And so as we mentioned, MDMs offer basic security features that are missing from mobile operating systems or related to device tasks. There's really 5 key things here that you should be considering when you're looking at mobile security management. So user authentication is a big one. How will you authenticate your users before granting access to mobile devices? So here, some MDMs can integrate with the enterprise directories. So like Active Directory, being tied into your MobileIron will really assist you in addressing your authentication needs and providing those single sign-on capabilities and stuff out there. Password policy enforcement, really looking at from a policy and governance standpoint, how you're managing your devices through MDM. The 6-digit passcode is really becoming more popular by large enterprises where they're enforcing that on the iPhones, for example, and they're even putting policies in place that those need to be changed on a regular basis, whether it's semi-annual or annual. The remote device wipe. So we talked about examples where that's becoming more of a standard now with mobile security management that if somebody loses a device or a device gets stolen, that you have the ability to wipe and clean those mobile devices, so prevent data being stolen or access back into your company systems. Another thing we're seeing pretty common out there is the white and blacklist and device restrictions. So a lot of companies, as they're putting their enterprise app stores in place and they're looking at mobile application management solutions to manage their apps that they're distributing out to the employees, are also looking at what we call the white and black list on there. And so these are lists that can be used to govern what apps can be used. So the white list, for example, are the apps that companies are allowing employees to download from the app stores or to access through their enterprise app store. And the blacklist are the ones that are prevented. Companies are saying these are ones that you cannot download from the app stores and use on your device that is being provided or you're using through company interactions there. So again, those are some key things to look at from a mobile security management. Last couple things here, mobile data protection. So this was really when you're looking at data that being accessed more easier today because of mobility, and you're having access to sensitive corporate information on handheld devices, you have to really look at the mobile data protection. So data encryption and how you're going to enforce policies that use hardware, software encryption to prevent unauthorized access to data stored on mobile devices. And backup and restore policies. How are you going to prevent data loss when a mobile device is damaged or stolen? So we've talked about that quite a bit, but there's got to be things that you have to consider from a data protection standpoint, that not only you can wipe the devices and encrypt data out there, but if you need to restore or back up that data, that you have those things in place there. And then the last thing we'll talk about is monitoring and help desk support. So monitoring and help desk support, mobile can be a bolt-on just to your existing technical support structure and service offerings. You really have to look at the considerations around mobility and making it to where it is going to be valuable and well received by that mobile workforce out there or your users. So some things to look at there is, self-help from a support desk standpoint, providing your users to report any issues or trouble they're having with their mobile devices or applications easily and be able to monitor that progress. Diagnostics, so as problems arise, making sure that you have the right tools in place. MDM solutions obviously play a big role in providing not just intended settings for monitoring devices, but also can provide a lot of valuable information as far as the health of that particular device out there, whether it's memory or battery or network connectivity. Remote control. As people were out in the field, having the ability to access those devices and to help support them, screen sharing, things that you can do in real time to really make sure you can get your employees and those devices more productive. And then from an audit and compliance standpoint, you need to prove that mobile devices comply with your stated policies and or your industry privacy regulations. So again, that's where your MDM solutions can help you really automate remote assessments and remediation and compliance reporting from that standpoint, from a help desk support. And then activity reports is the last thing we'll talk about here. So this is really looking at how much insight you'll need into mobile user activities, including interaction with business servers and networks. So most MDM solutions provide historical reports, but you should look closely to see whether they capture what you need to know for your particular support needs and use cases out there. So again, it's important as you really look at enterprise mobility management, understand your mobile use cases, understand your users out there, where they're going to use mobility, how they're going to use their devices, what types of devices and applications, and then really develop your strategies around enterprise mobility management that give you the best value, but also, more importantly, the best security in protecting your data without hindering your employees' productivity and business growth opportunities that you can achieve through mobility.
Well, James, thank you for that very comprehensive answer. Let's just do a little predicting towards the future here. I mean, this is such a complex field. How do you see it evolving over, say the next 5 to 10 years? Do you think that this kind of MDM, MAM solutions will become simpler and more streamlined, or do you think it's going to go the other way, where the increasing complexity of mobile devices and the increasing demand for even more instantaneous data, we had it on our phones for a while now we want it on our wrists, and pretty soon, with the advent of chatbots and maybe more interaction being done with our voices, suddenly that data is now being broadcast through the air, right, by your phone or whatever devices you're communicating with. So now anybody within earshot might be able to pick up on some of that data. So where do you see all of this headed?
That's an interesting question. I think, with the way that the solutions providers out there that are continually making the right investments in their platforms, whether it's AirWatch or MobileIron, they're doing the right things to ensure that they're providing platforms to protect our devices and the applications that we install on them, right? But I think, as you mentioned, the complexities as mobile continues to evolve technology-wise, and we're looking at the Internet of Things and driverless cars that are being managed and run by mobile technologies, and the continuous growth of what we're seeing with the wearable devices, the smartwatches and such. I think that's going to add a lot of complexities around how we manage our enterprise mobility. So I think the software will be there for us to make it easier to put the proper controls and tools in place to protect our data. But I think the complex aspect of it is going to be, again, around how companies themselves put the right policies and governance in place leveraging those types of MDM or MAM solutions out there to protect them the best that they can. It's not a straight answer. I don't think there's a one correct answer for everything.
Of course.
But I truly think that as we continue to evolve with technology, and you and I are seeing it every day in our field here, every day there's something new being announced about different types of technologies that, just puts one more challenge in front of the IT department at a company, because an employee says, hey, I've got this smartwatch and I want to be able to use that now for interacting and getting my company email or, viewing certain aspects of my applications, right? And that's one more thing now that the IT organization and the governance committee has to now consider and say, are we going to allow that? And if so, how are we going to protect the data? How do we install the right controls and parameters, to protect us as a corporation, but still enable our employee to be able to do their job? Because I think, as we talked about earlier, if you put too many controls and policies and governance in place, then eventually employees are going to say, this is too complex. This is too much of a pain in the behind there, that they're just not going to leverage those technologies, which ultimately will impact the way they do their jobs and the productivity. I think it's definitely going to pose more challenges as we venture into the next 2 to 3 years. But I think the technology companies are trying to make it easier for us. But I think even they will have their own challenges as different form factors and platforms are continually developed.
Do you think that there's a possibility that device makers will begin segmenting their devices and segregating a single device into like separate users? So you'll have your own device, but then on that device you'll have, business use and personal use, and it'll almost be like two separate phones in one device.
You kind of get that today with mobile application management tools, where you can put your MAM solution on the device, and inside of that you have these containers, and you can segment your business apps from your personal apps. And so we're kind of doing that today through the use of MAM solutions out there. Will device manufacturers get to that point? That's a good question. I don't know where their thoughts are. I would say that they will probably not get there in the short term, but eventually in the long term that could be a strong possibility. But I think the device manufacturers out there today are doing a good enough job of making things complex. I mean, if you look at Android has so many different types of device options out there that come with multiple features, on each one of their devices. That itself causes a lot of challenges already for IT organizations, just from an MDM perspective, as employees want to use their personal devices, or companies are looking at what's the best device that I can offer to my employees as a corporate-owned device. And that's why I think from an enterprise level, you're still seeing Apple and iOS being the leaders out there, because they've continued to stay with one phone platform, one tablet platform. They're not offering 4 or 5 different types of smartphones out there like an Android does. It'll be interesting as we progress over the next 3 to 5 years, how device manufacturers and software manufacturers look at either combining their technologies together or competing with one another in that instance.
Yeah, I agree. These next few years are going to be really interesting. So lastly, any advice about how I could manage all these kids? Does anybody come up with an app for handling neighborhood children in an organized fashion?
It's refreshing, though, to hear that your kids are outside playing, because every single time I see kids now, they're on a mobile device.
Yeah, that's right. And my wife has somehow managed to put them all to work. They've all got rakes out here, and they are doing some yard work, which I'm sure those rakes will turn into weapons before we end this podcast. But for now, looks like we've got some good cheap labor out there. Well, James, thanks again for hopping on, and that was a really great review of MDM, MAM solutions and all the details around why they're so important.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. Really enjoyed it. Again, I think if companies and whoever listens to this has any questions and stuff, they can certainly contact Propelics, and we'd be happy to do a deeper dive discussion on this with them.
Nah, thanks for joining us on another episode of Device Squad, the podcast for the mobile enterprise from Propelics. Stay tuned for the next episode. All right, James, I'll see you soon, bud.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye, everybody.